Hey everyone, Ekman here with another video, and today we have a second week of meta reports. We had enough events on this last weekend that I want to do kind of an updated version of this one. I don't know if I'm going to do a week 3, or maybe I'll just kind of do like a 1 month later one, but these have been pretty fun, and I want to make sure to just kind of give out some information for you guys as well. All of the events that we're also going over are individually on my website, Eggman Events, which you guys can check out in the description. Has all the deck lists and everything else, and let's just jump on into it. So, real quick, I do also want to shout the TCG Matchmaking for their not only their rank server, but also for publishing these weekly meta reports as well, kind of the win-loss ratio. So they're still kind of spinning up what they want to do with their Patreon and stuff, but they've also told me that we're going to get more data coming down the line too. So honestly, it's been a really good resource, not only for this data, but also for just being able to play some higher capacity games. So that's been really, really cool. So there's obviously a lot we could go over from these. I'm going to let you just freeze frame on this if you want to. But some big kind of things that I've noticed too is that, so if we look at our big three, you have Gecko, Moria here, we have Sakazuki, and then we have Katakuri. And generally all of these have 50-50 or better matchups at this time, right? Katakuri has a couple like 49%, but going against Moria, going against the Perona and Sakazuki, like those are like the big three, and we're all kind of like bouncing around the three. Sorry, pure Perona's not a big three, but it's just like your best matchup in a lot of ways. Mostly because they're at 4 life and they don't really have a way to defend your big moms. But Sakazuki kind of same thing. And if we look at Sakazuki, it's been kind of like the same, where it's a little bit middling. Moria is like a little bit of a bad matchup. Yamato matchup's getting a little bit better. Reiju matchup got a little bit better this time around too, and kind of going from there. And then Moria, again, pretty good across the board. Worst matchup is probably Perona, but it's pretty close. Perona just has like a really good way, like inherently off the leader to play or get removal off of your 4-drops, which Moria is playing like a lot, especially compared to Sakazuki. So that 4-drop removal is pretty important. But then again, like across the board. So I think like against like our bigger hitters, like for example, ourselves, it's 50-50. Against Reiju, we're winning. Against Sakazuki, we're winning. And Katakuri is like only our rough matchup. So kind of like a mini triangle format between those three. But then I think something that also helped, we have like Reiju here, which generally has like pretty good matchups. Our worst matchups are usually against yellow, just because they have like better end game for it. I will say I've been playing a lot of Enel, and the Reiju matchup seems kind of tough. Maybe I just am not playing aggressive enough for them, but the matchup seems like if you try to grind them out for value, they're going to outvalue you because their leader draws so much. So I think I might have to reevaluate how I play that matchup personally, but seeing this data is just really helpful, and I really do appreciate ranked TCG matchmaking for getting this out there. So you guys can check this out or pause if you want to see more data, but we're just going to jump on from here. All right, next up we have our meta report. So this is from the first week. We did have 5 events. We had our winners of 2 Katakuris, a Sakazuki, and Moria, and a Newgate. And if we go to this week, we had 5 events, larger caps for these, generally 2 512s and 3 1024s. And the winners were 2 Katakuris, 2 Morias, and a single copy of Sakazuki. So honestly, Sakazuki, even though like it's getting banned, and I've seen this effect before where knowing that it's getting banned in the next little bit means that some people just stop playing it altogether, and because of that, it might be a little bit weaker. I've already seen, oh man, why are we banning Sakazuki? It's not even winning events anymore. But I think it's still a really strong deck. I think a lot of people have kind of jumped over to Moria though, just because we know that in 2 months' time we can still play the deck, which is kind of impactful. And then also Katakuri. Katakuri has been doing very well this format. It's been kind of like, oh, when will yellow be good? In a lot of ways, I think like since OP03, like, oh man, Katakuri is broken. It's the best deck, and it's been kind of like in that obnoxious tier for a long time. But now it's kind of jumped up to, I think, really viable and competitively obnoxious, I guess, if you want to put it that way. So going more into it. So this is after week 1. Our topping leaders, we did have these ratios here with Moria, Sakazuki, and Katakuri just taking under 75%, but having a good variety of also Reijus and Nell, Star Deck 10 Law, and then some singletons of Newgate, Perona, Uta, Nami, and Zoro. But jumping into week 2, a little bit less of that, to be honest, a lot more of our big 3. So taking over 75% of the matchups, or at least the topping list of those 3, and then a couple just singletons. We had 7 Reiju, 3 Newgate, 3 Star Deck 10 Law, 2 Perona, 2 Yamatos, and 2 Enels. So generally, I think it's more centralized data for what it is. And if I'm being super honest, I don't think the meta is going to change much more than this. I think that these three are just going to be very strong. We have a couple of like tier 1.2, tier 2 decks that are going to high roll for a tournament and get a top, but these are the three that you're going to see more times than not. I would expect most of your tournament runs to be one of these three more times than not. All right, and some quick percentage changes before we go over the winning deck list for each one of these events. We've got our Gecko Morias. We've got, which just, our big three just got better, right? We jumped up to 34%, 27%, and 22%. We also have Yamato just taking a bit of a nosedive, going from 9% to just under 2%. We have Reiju, which is, I'm going to say, closer to about the same, to be honest, so 8% to 5.8. Enel about the same. Law about the same. Newgate going up a little bit from 1% to 2.5, so doubling its percentage, which is great. And then Perona from 1 to 1.6, so about the same. So and then Uta, Nami, and Zoro did not top from these events. And again, like this is something I think we're going to get more centralized for what this is. And I really know that like this is like the second week of like competitive play, but we're pretty centralized and know what the meta looks like for better or worse. So let's go over the topping deck list real quick. Starting off our winning deck list, we've got David's first place Sakazuki, and there's been a kind of a bit of a debate on what is the best build of Sakazuki right now. They are very similar, I will say, but the biggest point of contention is if we play the Marineford or the Navy HQ. It does give like a passive -1 to a card, so meaning that you can double up with your leader effect. So every turn you can give something -2 cost for pretty much free, no Dawn investment, which is really nice. So that is really helpful for a lot of decks. Specifically, I think Sakazuki's like worst matchup in the meta, more times than not, is Gecko Moria. I think it gets a little bit more value than this deck, and it helps that Moria is at 5 life and Sakazuki's at only 4. But if you have Marineford out, it just means that you have just so many good ways to make a 4-cost card cost 2 cost, which means then you have your Houndblades, your Amas, your Rob Lucci's to get that immediate removal, which is really nice. So I think that's been the reason that's been so popular for it, and it's been a little bit debating. It is a little bit tough to not play Great Eruptions at time because you lose a little bit of cycle, and if you're only like using Marineford's effect once, then you kind of lose the value from there, which is a little bit impactful. So I think it's fine. I think it's a different flavor for it, and I think people have their own opinions about that too, if they like it or not. I don't think one is strictly better than the other. It's just kind of down to a preference at this point. So this is the build from David. I don't have much more to say about Sakazuki. We've been seeing it for so long, but it's been obviously very strong, and congratulations to their first place finish there. Next up, we have our Katakuri. So we've got Michael Curry with their version, and also Luis's with this one. And if this build from Michael looks very similar, it's because it is the same build that he won with last week as well. So getting a back-to-back win is really impressive. So Katakuri is definitely in a good spot, I think, for this meta. One thing that I think mentioned last week is like, I don't know about how I feel about Brûlé. I think it's something that is like a really easy card to remove at this point. It's not like a really sufficient blocker, but kind of more from the fact that we need more Paraspero targets, and sometimes you do still win the game from using this from your life. So adding 2 copies to it, I don't think is too terrible for the deck. We are also playing 3 Linlin, 1 copy of the 8-drop Katakuri just for some removal for some emergency situations. I would feel like this is less of healing yourself and more of getting removal on the other side. And then we got our 10-drop and 7-drop Linlin. So very strong deck. I think this is still in a really good spot. And then also we have Luis with their version from the Nest offline regionals as well. And this one's a little bit more, I don't know, it's interesting. I think the biggest card of contention here is the Hiyori, which we're not playing in Michael's build, but it is a very tempting card to run. It's a 2k counter, but also it's really good at getting cards into your life. So like, let's say, for example, you want to be able to put your Kiku Nojo in there, or even your Neko Mamushi, which is just kind of a backup copy of Kiku in this deck generally. It is, putting the 2 Dawn to attack something active is important, I think, in some matchups, but generally speaking, I think Kiku is just the better card, right? But being able to use this card and even put like a Shirahoshi into your life, so you do kind of go like -1 for the card, but being able to use it to like cheat out resources, I think is great. So if you, again, like let's say you're at like 3 Dawn, right? Well, you could put Hiyori for 2, put Kikunojo at the top of your life, and then attack with 7k. And if your opponent doesn't get out of it, your Kikunojo is coming out next turn, which is very strong. So only thing that I'm kind of noticing from both these decks, no Namis. I kind of still like Onami in the build, especially since, again, on turn 2 you play it, you give your leader banish. It's a 7k banish. That's pretty good for turn 2. So that I think helps the deck as well. But still, this is a really strong build. Yellow's in a, I think, just obnoxiously good spot right now, and I really can't wait for Reject to leave. It's a game winner outright. It is just too strong for the game, I think, as well. So anyways, these are the builds. Congratulations to Michael and to Luis for their finishes there. And then wrap it up, we do have our Gecko Moria, which I think is probably, if asked what's the best deck in the format, it's pretty close between Gecko and Sakazuki, but I think I'm going to have to say Gecko this week since it is just really consistent. I know a lot of people are on the deck, but it's also just topping a whole lot and just doing very, very well. Just the consistency part of it is very good, being able to be very flexible in your plays because of it as well. And it's probably one of the, I think it gets just so much value from Gecko. Sakazuki might get a little bit more value from Gecko, but just the fact that we're a 5-life leader as well and get pretty much all the removal that Sakazuki gets outside of Houndblaze is just very strong for the deck. So this is Joshua's build from the PPG event, and then also we have Jorge's build from the online Latin American event as well. Not a lot of differences. Biggest difference is that we do have Joshua running the Rebecca package. So kind of like how the Navy HQ is like the debate point for deck building for Sakazuki. For Moria, the decision point is if we are playing Rebecca and Hina, since there are some really good like removal targets for it. Rebecca, I don't think is as strong as it was in OP05. There are just way more ways to interact with this card, and it's not as good of a blocker, especially against Gecko Moria, which can just use like Great Eruption on attack, use its effect, play Absalom from the trash, which means you get your attack and you get rid of the blocker in the same move, which is very strong. So that's kind of making it a little bit worse, but sometimes like Gecko Moria into Rebecca, being able to do this, and then you play Brand New, and then you get to draw a card off Brand New, and then you also get like a 2k off your Rebecca. That's still a very great value swing from this card. It's just making sure that you have the time to get that value swing and not need to do like a Rob Lucci or something. So, but we go, and then I would say this is more of the standard build for Jorge here. Biggest thing is that I think Sabo, I've been saying this, I feel like every day, but like Sabo is very good in this meta, and where there's so much removal, it just prevents yellow from doing any like Onami stuff. It prevents, or from life, that is. You still can get Houndblaze by stuff, but man, this is still I think in a really good spot for this. So I would say like this is like the standard build. I'm pretty sure I've seen this build card for card before, but that doesn't mean it's a bad build or like even Jorge borrowed it from someone. It just means I think it's very strong, and that's what this deck is kind of leaning more towards outright. And then if you want more of like the Hina combo, which again, like there's, if you go second Hina into Absalom, get removal of whatever they played last turn, and now you have 2 5Ks on the board, is a really good 6 Dawn turn for this thing, even 7 Dawn as well. So anyways, those are the lists here and for the topping ones, and let's go to a quick tier list update. All right, and here is the tier list that I had last week. Honestly, I think it holds up pretty good, and to be honest, a tier list in this meta, as long as you put these as the big 3, usually looks pretty good, and then you just have kind of your hot takes down here. But I think it still holds up. I think it's maybe a little bit conservative on what we're doing. Maybe some of these can jump up and down, depend on your own personal experiences, but it's still pretty safe for what it is. But if I want to be kind of like a little bit more edgy and maybe pessimistic, depending on your point of view, I would probably kind of show you guys this one. So obviously these 3, a whole gap underneath them. We've got Reiju is probably the 4th best deck, which I think has been solidified in my mind this week. We have the Expansion Booster Waiting Room, which are these 3 decks that are still okay in this meta, but we do get a lot of support in Expansion Booster 1, and then just kind of the rest here, which they can top, they have been topping, but I don't think they're kind of at the same caliber as the other cards, and I don't really think they get a good amount of cards in this next little bit until at least OP07. So I do know that we also get Star Deck 13 in a couple weeks, and that does change a little bit. I think a lot of people are saying that the black yellow Luffy from that one's going to be pretty viable, and definitely will be down the line as well, looking at results from Japan. But for what we have literally right now, I think this is kind of what the meta looks like. Again, a little bit more on the edgier version of it, but it's I think it's going to hold up for the next couple weeks, to be honest, which is kind of why I don't think I'm going to do another one of these, at least until Star Deck 13 comes out. out, but this is kind of what this format looks like, and this is what like OP06 looks like until we get some supplemental cards too. So anyways, that's going to be it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what I got right. Let me know what I got wrong. Let me know your thoughts of this meta, and I'll see you guys next time.
Damn it. Damn it.